Hello everyone and welcome to the showdown between the Tomb Kings led by Cetra the Imperishable and the Vampire Counts who are going to be led by Heinrich Kemmler. So in this match, I wanted to bring a Tomb Kings build that has absolutely no construct play. As such, the only constructs I will be using in this game are going to be my Shopty summons. So for the rest of my army in Vanguard, I do have 3 groups of the Skeleton Horseman Archers, which I think will give me some pretty good battlefield positioning and maybe be able to take out Corpse Carts and Cryptors and, some other lightly armored threats. But, honestly, worst case scenario, at the end of the game when they do run out of ammunition, you can use them to rear charge things like Cairn Race. You can see my opponent actually does have a very interesting build over here. It's got some Cairn Race and, one of the better ways to kill these type of units. Granted, I do have Usirian's Incantation of Vengeance on Cetra, so I should be fine, but units like that do have relatively low base leadership. You can see it's only in the 50s there, somewhat similar to like Bretonian Peasants actually. So you can rear charge them, give them the negative 14 penalty, I think, of leadership, and it helps to crumble them. So we'll see how these guys do. Just to cover them, I have one group of Skeleton Horsemen here. So in case you had a very heavy Hound game, granted, most Vampire Counts players I don't think are going to bring a lot of Hounds because the very typical Tomb Kings build versus Vampire Counts is just a really just awful Death Star with Arc in the Black, the Tomb Blade. You're going to see the Sphinx of Usef, which has the fire damage. So Hounds obviously aren't going to do a lot against large constructs, so I felt relatively safe having this Goon Squad here. But just in case, one group of Skeleton Horsemen probably will be able to help out against those Fellbats. So for my front line, I do have the Kepra Guard. These guys are kind of like the Sternsmen in that I think if you're going to be going with some sort of an infantry corps, they're a pretty decent choice. They have a 38 melee attack and they do magic damage. So against Cairn Race and, spooky, scary threats, they can actually take them down. Really like these guys regenerating, so you don't need to babysit them too much. And yeah, that's the center. On the outskirts, 2 groups of Tomb Guard here. I just wanted a little bit of a durable infantry line since I'm going to be using basically the Tomb King equivalent of the Gobbo firing line. I do have the Blessed Legion of Fock back here, or Demonetization as we like to call it. And a lot of people actually ask in the comments why I do call it the Blessed Legion of Demonetization. Well, when I first started trying to say the name, and I heard a couple other YouTubers doing it as well, it kind of sounds like you're cursing when you say their name. You guys obviously know what I'm referring to. So yeah, that's kind of the backstory there. But, these guys will be pretty good in conjunction with the other skeletons here, shooting down, Cryptors and other large threats. So if you had like Terrorgeists or, big powerful entities that need to go down, they should do a pretty good job of harassing and, giving me some stopping power. In the back here, Skeleton Warriors and Skeleton Spears just to defend the back of my formation. So it almost feels like I'm playing a bit of a Bretonian army, just kind of a low-tier troops with like Skeleton Archers. Definitely quite a bit of fun. So for my leadership, this is probably the most important aspect of this build is you use Cetra the Imperishable, use him on his horse. And the cool thing about the lore of Nehekar is that if you're going very wide with like skeletons, the Realm of Souls is going to be relatively strong. So let's go ahead and look here. So the Restless Dead, excuse me. So whenever you cast a spell, it gives you like a map-wide heal for 7 seconds. So if you're spamming these very cheap Lore of Nehekar spells like the Narrows Incantation and also the Dejav's Incantation of the Cursed Blades, it's going to really benefit a very wide skeleton army like mine. And Usirian's Incantation of Vengeance is very good against Blood Knights and ethereal targets, so I think that's pretty much a must bring. And we have the Wrath of Petra, which is a very cool AoE ability that seems to do okay against low-tier infantry. So, but more importantly, as anti-large and armor piercing, so had my opponent gone with the very traditional build of like double Terrorgeist and, trying to goon out my constructs, which I don't have, Cetra would be able to deal with those. And he also has 2 Tomb Princes. So the Tomb Princes are very similar to the High Elf Nobles, a little bit more expensive, but they're obviously stronger. They have 370 weapon strength, very good bonus versus large. But what makes them very powerful are their utility abilities. So the Tomb Strike gives them melee attack and weapon damage and terror, which isn't pertinent here, but I still think it's worth bringing. And the Curse of Dejav. So this makes everyone rampage, lowers their melee attack. It's an incredibly strong ability. So I have 2 of those guys. They're going to be rolling with Cetra, trying to take out high-value targets, and that's pretty much it. For my opponent, he's got Blood Knights and a Black Coach on the far side, a couple of Fellbats, probably a Muck down, who Shopty Great Bows most likely, and a pretty cool front line. So he's got Chaff mixed with Cryptors, which are something that I think might be okay against Constructs and against Ushopti and Tomb Scorpions. They have mass, they have good armor piercing, definitely some cool stuff. He has a couple groups of Cairn Raids here. In the back, he does have Heinrich Kemmler, who, man, I forgot how hard it is to actually kill Heinrich Kemmler. I don't know what it is that makes him so tanky, but he's got 50 melee defense, the Cloak of Mist and Shadows, which gives physical resist. But aside from that, I feel like he's just hard to kill. And also the Chaos Tomb Blade is pretty good. Some Skeleton Spears. He's got a Corpse Cart to kind of augment his melee blob here. And another one over here, I think, or that's actually a Necromancer. So the Necromancer there is going to get some more Raised Dead summons. That's pretty much it. So without further ado, guys, let's get this game on the road. So he's coming in with his Fellbats, and you can see my Blessed Legion and some of my Skeleton Archers and Skeleton Horseman Archers are taking them apart relatively well. In the meantime, my opponent is going to be pressuring the flank with the Blood Knights and also the Black Coach. And the Black Coach is, like, against a build like this, is actually pretty menacing. I mean, it's going to be able to do some work back here. So he does land the bats on top of my missiles, probably to shut them down temporarily, which is pretty good because it's taking away my opportunity to skirmish and really punish his Cryptors here. But you can see I'm going to be using my Tomb Princes actually to go over on the outskirts here. So the Black Coach does come in, and it's going to get into the cookie jar a little bit on my Skeleton Archers. But I have my 2 Tomb Princes here, and they're going to be able to intercept the Black Coach. They get some really good shock damage on it. In the Blood Knights over here, I do use the Usirian's Incantation of Vengeance, which does okay HP damage. It's kind of like Melkoth's, and I'm able to screen them out with Skeleton Spears. But the Black Coach got a nice little Alpha Strike in there. So the main fight is underway. You can see my Skeleton Archers took care of the Fellbats in conjunction with the backline firing support. So now they're just going to start shooting at the Cryptors the entire game. I also sent a couple of my Tomb Princes forward to help out in the front line because Skeletons obviously don't have the best mass. What was going on with that guy over there? Did you guys see him dancing there? That was really strange, but my firing squad is going on, so I like to have a layer, and whenever you're playing Bretonnia or Tomb Kings or factions like that, it's good to have layering if you're going to be playing like skeleton-based builds. So, once he penetrates my front line, it's going to make him go through a couple layers of fire. You have auxiliary troops you can pull forward once your front line breaks, but for the most part, my front line is holding. The Tomb Princes and Setra the Imperishable here are just kind of skewering these Cryptors and securing my back line. So since my build is very missile dependent, it's really important that you do secure your back line. And you can see they're just pounding these Cryptors and doing a ton of damage. So they're down to 8 models, they're crumbling. And I also do have my Skeleton Archers in the back who are providing some pretty good overwatch here. In the meantime, his Blood Knights are on the hunt, so I do detach Setra as well as one of the Tomb Princes. I leave the other one to deal with the Cryptors. And Setra's going to be pretty durable. I mean, these guys do have anti-large. You can see the Wrath of Petra coming in here. And I don't know how much damage it did. I feel like it did okay work. And then I get the Syrians, and you can see they're just getting melted by Setra. I mean, he's a very powerful anti-large duelist. 60 melee attack, he has some great utility, and a really solid armor-piercing value. So the Blood Knights are going down, relatively speaking. My Tomb Prince in the front line just kind of holding it down. You can see my opponent is kind of overwhelming me a little bit here. But I have a healthy firing line of Skeleton Archers here. And right now we're just trying to pick off this Corpse Cart, which I probably should have been going after the Necromancer, but he was really tied up by my infantry, and this guy was an open target, so you can see I have a really nice concave of fire. In the meantime, though, my opponent's doing a pretty good job just staying relentless, and this Black Coach has actually been the most threatening thing this entire game. It's just been running through my line. It's got 35 kills, and it also does fire damage. So if it does end up fighting Setra, at least it's going to get that bonus for itself there. So Setra, I'm just being very persistent, trying my best to chase these Blood Knights, make sure they're not going to be an ongoing threat, because again, they can really pressure my backfield. But these Skeleton Horseman Archers are pretty cool, and I mean, most Vampire Counts players, okay, let's be real here. This build is not as optimal as Construct spam. If you just go with the Sphinx and those targets, it's almost impossible for the Vampire Counts to take you out. If you're playing two equally skilled players, and one of you is Tomb Kings, one of you is Vampires, and the Tomb Kings are going to win 95% of the time if they're playing the really optimal Arc and Tomb Blade, just those really degenerate builds. But I feel like a build like this is pretty fun and engaging, and I think it might be viable in a multitude of matchups. I had some pretty good success against Chaos, and I look forward to showing you guys some more replays with it. So Setra the Imperishable in the pits here is just fighting, and at this point I was like, hey, Heinrich Kemmler's kind of just sitting here. Setra's a better duelist, obviously, but Heinrich is infantry sized, so my bonus versus large isn't really going to be as pertinent, but you can see Heinrich is just getting whooped on by Setra, but he's going to be pretty durable and does have some modalities for healing. Oh, look at Setra just going deep in Heinrich. He's just flying. He's just being crowd surfed by his zombies and skeletons right there, which is pretty great. But let's go ahead and take an overarching look at the battle. So right now, I do get my Ushopti summon, so a little bit of cheating here, but I figured, hey, I didn't bring any constructs. Might as well just use my summon. But maybe I'll do some more games where I don't use those either, and we'll see how that goes. But definitely very helpful, because the bounce bar is still dead even. My opponent has a very big infantry blob, Cairn Race, and just, Heinrich is pretty durable in here. And I started to slowly realize that this wasn't going to go well for me. I feel like my Tomb Prince and Setra are eventually going to get worn down by all these fodder troops here, and I need to get out and kind of secure, because the Black Coach is still kind of reigning terror, and I don't want him to get these Skeleton Archers for free. So there's also, let's see, only 15 Blood Knights, but these guys have 76 speed compared to the 70 here, and the Black Coach has actually 78. So the Black Coach could catch these guys, but honestly, it probably won't be able to. So here in front, my one Tomb Prince is just kind of fighting against the last of these Blood Knights right here, leading his people, but Krell is also in here, so Krell making an appearance, and he's probably going to be able to lay a whooping on my guy, because even though Krell is massive, I think he's still infantry size, so the bonus versus large isn't going to come into effect here. And I was wondering how my Tomb Prince was dying in the game. I was like, how is he dying to just a couple of Blood Knights? But it was actually Krell in here who was doing some pretty heavy lifting. So the fight's very close, and he does have a Corpse Cart and a Necromancer. I think his Corpse Cart actually died, but he does have the Necromancer coming in, who does have the Corpse Cart effects. So all of these zombie chaff units, the Königstein Stalkers and Cairn Race, are all getting a really nice stat augmentation. But on that same note, Setra has an ability called Thy Will Be Done, which gives 5 melee attack to all nearby troops and melee defense, so it's definitely just a monster mash or a skeleton mash in here. Spooky, scary skeleton showdown. So Cetra, or not Cetra, but my one Tomb Prince got low enough to that he was able to use his curse because Krell is just like whooping him right now. You can see Krell over here just with his giant axe making Khorne proud. But I was able to use my curse. So the curse, I mean, it makes everyone rampage, so they lose control. And you can see Krell with the karate chop just taking my Tomb Prince off the horse. But he'll probably fall shortly after to all these skeletons and other troops here. But regardless, the curse is really good. I mean, negative 26 melee attack on a huge AoE radius is very powerful. It gives my guys a chance to come back. As far as my remaining troops, I have 70 Tomb Guard, 54 here, and then the Kepra Guard, of course, regenerating and just working on the back. But, you know, Cetra's a little bit overwhelmed here. So I saw the Black Coach, and I was like, enough. Its reign of terror must come to an end. So I get my Tomb Prince, my Skeleton Archers, Skeleton Horse Archers, and I actually try and surround the Black Coach, but it's just too slippery, and he was able to summon some zombies, or skeletons. So very well played to my opponent, screening me out there and, you know, keeping me from getting on the Black Coach. So now you can see the bounce power going in my opponent's favor. My Shopti have died and degenerated, so I was getting a little bit nervous here. I was like, oh man, I need to start hunting these priority targets. I can't play the grind game with Heinrich Kemmler. He's just kind of outdoing me here, and his Cairn Racer are going to be very tough to kill. So at this point, I get Cetra, and I also withdraw my other Tomb Prince, who is somewhere around here, and I start hunting down the Black Coach. So the Wrath of Patral going down, just doing a huge AoE blast, and actually doing substantial damage to some of these Cairn Rays, because they are magic. And do they take extra from fire damage? I don't think they do. But the Black Coach is here, so I just wanted to get my lords out of the blob because their talents are very wasted here. So you can see I do have some arrow support from these skeleton archers coming in on the Black Coach, and I'm just like, okay, it's time to hunt. So I need to go after the Necromancer, who's an immobile target. So I get these guys up and around. You can see my pathing coming in, and I'm going to be going after the Necromancer, and then from there I'm going to be trying to shut down the Black Coach, who I'm putting missile pressure on, but it's still healing up. You know, Heinrich has the Chaos Tombblade, which is resurrecting. He has very healthy Cairn Race over here, and it's definitely getting pretty spooky. So I'm also running out of ammo, so right now I just have to use my Skeleton Horseman, coming in with the rear charge, and like I said, against these type of units, the rear charge is very potent because it leads them to crumbling and, you know, ultimately does quite a bit of HP damage. But Heinrich summoning another zombie horde, which is just kind of mucking up, but I am able to get on the Necromancer. So you can see Cetra and the Tomb Prince here. I'm just kind of spam clicking on this guy, trying to take him down, and we should be able to get rid of him, which will be very strong because the corpse heart effect will then be gone. So he's finally down, and from here, Cetra does escape. My other Tomb Prince is a little bit mucked up. The bounce of power still in my opponent's favor. Definitely still looking like his game here. The Cairn Race have a decent model count, and my lord's relatively low, but I know that if I can get rid of this darn Black Coach who's just kind of breaking all my units with these rear charges, I'll be okay. So Cetra's coming in for the hunt. He gets a little bit of an attack there, but the Black Coach just got too many moves. It's too slippery. So we're still chasing it right here. Another great rear charge by Cetra, and you can see the Black Coach is getting so low. It has 1200 HP, and a lot of the Vampire Count's troops are starting to crumble. You can see my opponent realizing the Black Coach is kind of his lifeline here, is sending everything he has after Cetra, the Cairn Race, the Königstein Stalkers, and I'm just trying my best to get around. So I'm not committing to the blob. I'm not playing that game. So I'm going to be running around. You can see I'm pathing just around the blob, trying to stay away from his troops who he's pathing after me here. And I'm trying to get on the Coach, which is just crumbling my dudes. 116 kills, definitely not bad at all. So Heinrich Kemmler does pop the Cloak of Mist and Shadows to mitigate some of the damage he's taking. And I do get my other Tomb Prince right here. So 752 HP, I have it pinned. And then you can see Cetra coming from the other angle. So right now is the moment of truth. The mighty Black Coach most likely going to fall, 71 HP. And Cetra coming in for the last blow. You can see the imperishable one. Oh, that actually is pretty cool. Seeing all the wood fly up. That's some like 80s action movie stuff going on right there. He literally is walking away from the explosion. Just an absolute gangster. So Cetra doing a pretty good job. In the meantime, you can see Heinrich Kemmler is full health. So that's one of the only reasons the bounce power is still pretty good for my opponent. But now that the Coach is gone, we should be able to just goon him out. I mean, yeah, Cetra and a Tomb Prince are, both pretty good duelists in their own right, so they should be able to finish him off. So right now he has some Cairn Race and some other troops in here that are fighting the good fight, and honestly, their leadership's going to buckle, because you can see even my Skeleton Archers here, they have 15 and 19 melee defense. So that's really good because of Cetra, and the curse goes down. So Cetra gets low, he triggers his AoE damage curse, which just melts the last of these guys because it just does magic damage. So such a good underrated ability against the vampire counts, and you can see those Cairn Race literally just all flopped at the same time. So definitely a Halloween special going on here, but the Curse of Dejaf goes down because, again, my Tomb Prince did get low, my second one. So I get a nice little debuff there, and Heinrich Kemmler is basically just going to get beaten down by Cetra the Imperishable. And that's going to be all she wrote for the Vampire Count. So definitely a very fun, just wild game, just back and forth. And I really like this style of play with the Tomb Kings. I have a couple more replays that I did get. I had one against Chaos. That was pretty fun, so I'll make sure to post those in the next week just to show you guys the viability of these type of builds. I had a couple where I actually had some really fun games using the chariots, so using the archer chariots, and I found them to be pretty good against like Forsaken and some other things like that. But Cetra was a pimp. The archers were able to take out the Cryptors and the other pertinent threats. The Skeleton Horseman archers, I really liked them quite a bit. Now, I don't know how they would do, because this was a bit of a different build from the Vampire counts, but I wonder how that build would have done against Constructs. So he has AP here. I don't know how they would do, I guess. I mean, because Arkin would have Fate Abuna, so he'd probably just Fate Abuna these guys down, or the Blood Knights. Yeah, it's hard to say. And the Iron Titan gives you Winds of Magic to cast about 3 Fate Abunas, so you could get one on each of these. Cryptors with the Corpse cards augmenting their relatively low combat stats might be a decent option against Constructs. It was definitely a cool build for sure. I mean, he had Fellbats to shut down the Ushopti Great Bow play, and I think he might have struggled against the Necrosphinx, but again, the Necrosphinx wouldn't have had too many great targets here other than the Blood Knights and maybe Krell and stuff. Yeah, definitely an interesting build. So very well played to my opponent, Destroyer85 DDG. Look forward to running into you again on ladder, and hopefully you guys enjoyed seeing the Tomb Kings without any construct play. So have an excellent night, guys, and take care.